opinions expressed on this radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and FreedomSlips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, FreedomSlips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
Hello and welcome back to David McIntyre Set Out. This is show number 559.
Correct.
950 and 500. This is listener funded radio. So if you can support, if you can donate, if you want to introduce more people to our listenership, please do so. We are, of course, we're going to talk about something today, and what we're going to talk about is I think we're finishing up with 9/11. 9/11.
Look, I've got it as page 61. It'll be
I think
close.
that sounds about right.
Yeah.
Let me just see if I can find my show now. Here we go.
Emphasis on foreign oil.
Yeah, that's about right. Let me just. Oh, of course, my Word doesn't work.
Of course.
Because I'm on an Apple machine, and that's what happens. I'm going to Pages. That's right, baby. And well, they're both opening. Oh, let's see which one opens first. But just to recap quickly, and why talk about it at all is the question, right? Why talk about 9/11? It's been 21 years. 21 years. And the reason for that, the show that is because it has been 21 years. There's a whole generation of people that has grown up and can now drink, legally in the States at least, that never ever experienced the world before 9/11. They don't know what it's about. It's just never happened. It's, 9/11. That's all I know. Let me tell you, it was a very different world where you can leave your shoes on and your belt as you went through airport security. Yeah, that all happened.
That's right.
Yeah, I know. So yeah, I know, right? It was a bit like that. So it is Homeland Security, Patriot Act 1 and 2, all of those things changed the world we live in, right? I mean, the Afghan war, that misadventure, which came to a really terrible end recently when everybody pulled out and left the Afghans to fight for themselves. And we have forgotten what happened on that day. We've forgotten what went on. We've forgotten a whole bunch of stuff that went on, right? And I think you're right. We have, well, of course, I can't. Okay, that hasn't opened up. Oh, but them apples, Dave. Why don't you take it from? Oh, no,
Yeah.
take it from.
I'll just take it from emphasis on foreign oil.
Yeah, perfect.
And you can catch up and find the spot. I did put the text into our chat.
Oh no! I'm not worried about that. I can't open the show notes. It's not
that's yeah, you get that. It's all good. So
yeah. Awesome.
This does go. It does ride for a little while. So bear with me. Emphasis on foreign oil. The report places substantial emphasis on oil from the Persian Gulf region. Its chapter on strengthening global alliances states, by any estimation, Middle East oil producers will remain central to world oil security. The Gulf will be a primary focus of US international energy policy. This is the US president from the 16th of May, 2001. But it all suggests that the US cannot depend exclusively on traditional sources of supply to provide the growing amount of oil that it needs, and will have to obtain substantial supplies from new sources such as the Caspian states, Russia, Africa, and the Atlantic Basin. Additionally, it notes that the US cannot rely on market forces alone to gain access to these added supplies, but will also require a significant effort on the part of the government officials to overcome foreign resistance to the outward reach of American energy companies. That comes from Japan Today, 30th of April 2002. Revamping of Clean Air Act. The plan also calls for a clarification of the news source reviews section of the Clean Air Act, which requires energy companies to install state-of-the-art emission control technology whenever it makes major modifications to its plants. So upon a change or a mod, you must upgrade your your emissions or lower your emissions through technology. The administration's energy plan gives the Environmental Protection Agency, the EPA, 90 days to review NSR and determine whether it is discouraging companies from constructing or expanding power plants and refineries. It also instructs the Attorney General to review the current NSR litigation efforts against utility companies to determine whether those efforts are contributing to the country's energy problems. The outcome could determine whether the government drops some cases or approaches others more leniently, or even renegotiates settlements already reached. The New York Times reports that comes from the US President again, the 16th of May 2001. Let me just check. Yeah, Mackie, look, if you have to, man, do it. I'm good. All right? I'll catch you. Mackie might reboot. He would back. Dodging the EPA. The representatives of the Environmental Protection Agency on the task force had blocked the recommendation of a technique called hydraulic fracturing. Some call it fracking. The technique, used to extract natural gas from the earth, often contaminates aquifers used for drinking water and irrigation. The recommendation was removed to placate the EPA official, then quietly reinserted into the final draft. Halliburton, Cheney's former firm, is the US leader in the use of hydraulic fracturing. This comes from Dubose and Bernstein, 2006, page 18. Cheney stayed largely behind the scenes. Much of the task force's work was done by a 6-member staff, led by Executive Director Andrew Lindquist, a former aide to Senator Ted Stevens, R-AK, and Frank Murkowski, R-AK. Now, I'm not sure what R-AK means. Happy to be instructed in the chat room. Lindquist served as the Bush-Cheney campaign energy expert, earning the nickname Lightbulb from the president. Lindquist will leave the Bush administration and become a lobbyist for such firms as British Petroleum, Duke Energy, and the American Petroleum Institute. Much of the report is shaped by Lindquist and his colleagues, who in turn relied heavily on energy company executives and their lobbyists. For himself, Cheney did not meet openly with most of the participants, remaining largely behind the scenes. He did meet with Enron executive Kenneth Lay. And it says there's a reference here, see April 17th, 2001 and after. With officials from Sandia National Laboratories to discuss their economic models of the energy industry, with energy industry consultants, and with selected congressmen, Cheney also held meetings with oil executives such as British Petroleum, John Brown, and are not listed on the task force's calendar. That came from the Washington Post, 18th of July, 2007. Controversial meetings with energy executives. Both prior to and after the publication of this report, Cheney and other task force officials meet with executives from Enron and other energy companies, including one meeting a month and a half before Enron declares bankruptcy in 2001 December. So there's a whole bunch of references here to, it must be the end of Enron's book. Two separate lawsuits are later filed to reveal details of how the government's energy policy was formed and whether Enron or other players may have influenced it. But the courts will eventually allow the Bush administration to keep the documents secret. The Associated Press, 9th of December 2002. May 23, 2001, former UNOCAL employee becomes Bush's special assistant to Middle East and Central Asia. Zalmav Khalilzad, the source here is the US Embassy in Iraq. Zalmav Khalilzad is appointed special assistant to the president and senior director for Gulf, Southwest Asia, and other regional issues on the National Security Council. Khalilzad was an official in the Reagan and George H. Bush administrations. During the Clinton years, he worked for UNOCAL. And this comes from the US Department of State, 2001, and also the Independent on the 10th of January 2002. He previously worked under Deputy Defense Secretary Paul Wolfowitz and helped him write a controversial 1992 plan for US world domination. Oh, really? New York Times, 23rd of March 2003. He was, I'm reading the references, right? So if you were to go to the archive of these sources, you should be able to find these stories. They existed when we put this together. He was a member of the neoconservative think tank project for the New American Century. The Asia Times notes, it was Khalilzad, when he was a huge Taliban fan, who conducted the risk analysis for UNOCAL, Union Oil Company of California, for the infamous proposed 2 billion, 1,500 kilometer long Turkmenistan, Afghanistan to Pakistan, the TAP gas pipeline. And that comes from the Asia Times, the 25th of December 2003. After 9/11, he will be appointed as special envoy to Afghanistan and then US ambassador to Afghanistan. You can see how all of this builds towards the narrative. June 2001, Enron shuts down expensive Indian plant after Afghanistan pipeline fails to materialize. Enron's power plant in Dabhol in India is shut down. The failure of the $3 billion plant, Enron's largest investment, contributes to Enron's bankruptcy in December. Earlier in the year, India stopped paying its bill for the energy from this plant because energy from the plant costs 3 times the usual rates. That comes from the New York Times, the 20th of March 2001. Enron had hoped to feed the plant with cheap Central Asian gas, but this hope was dashed when a gas pipeline through Afghanistan was not completed. The larger part of the plant is still only 90% complete when the construction stops around this time. New York Times, 20th of March 2001. Enron executives meet with Commerce Secretary Donald L. Evans about its troubled Dabhol power plant during this year. New York Times, 21st of February 2002. And Vice President Cheney lobbies the leader of India's main opposition party about the plant this month. Once again, 21st of February 2002. Becky, you back with us? I can see you muted.
I am back, but I cannot do anything.
Wow, you can't get to Word?
Nope, you're not, sir.
Wow, do you want me to just paste the next bit in for you?
Sure, why not?
All right.
Let's do the technically advanced thing.
That's right. All right, hang on. I'll give you a couple of. Oh, geez, what did it do now? I'll give you these two.
Lou.
All right. Everyone
Yeah,
just
Lou.
needs to. Yeah. Yes.
Hey, hoppa. There we go. Let's see. Oh, it's gone. Why are you gone? What happened?
Where have I gone?
No, you haven't. My text box. Oh, there it is.
Okay, I'm you and you're me. I'm what now?
India and Pakistan, June 27, 2001, right?
Yep.
India and Pakistan discussed building pipeline project through Iran. The Wall Street Journal reports that Pakistan and India are discussing jointly building a gas pipeline from Central Asian gas fields through Iran to circumvent the difficulties of building the pipeline through Afghanistan. Iran has been secretly supporting the Northern Alliance to keep Afghanistan divided so no pipelines could be put through it. Sources: Wall Street Journal, June 27, 2001. Mid-July 2001, FBI official John O'Neill rails against White House and Saudi obstructionism. Now, John O'Neill is actually a name you should remember. FBI counterterrorism expert John O'Neill privately discusses White House obstruction in his Bin Laden investigation. Now, this is the same O'Neill that was killed in the World Trade Center many years later. Well, actually, not many years later. Some months later. There you go. O'Neill says, I'm quoting, the main obstacles to investigate in Islamic terrorism were U.S. oil corporate interests and the role played by Saudi Arabia in it. He adds, and the quote goes on, all the answers, everything needed to dismantle Osama bin Laden's organization can be found in Saudi Arabia. End quote. O'Neill also believes the White House is obstructing his investigation of bin Laden because they are still keeping the idea of a pipeline deal with the Taliban open. That's the Irish Times, 19th of November 2001, Broussard and Dasquier 2002, pages 24 onwards, as well as CNN 8th of January 2002 and 9th of January 2002.
Okay, July 21st, 2001. US official threatens possible military action against the Taliban by October if pipeline is not pursued. Oh boy, I just clicked on it. Hang on a minute. I clicked and it disappeared. Hang on.
What was it? What happened? What?
Hang on, I'm getting there.
Crazy
There we
stuff.
go. I got it. I got back to it. All right. So Niaz Niak, and the source is the Calcutta Telegraph. 3 former American officials, Tom Simons, former US ambassador to Pakistan, Carl Inderfurth, former Deputy Secretary of State for South Asian Affairs, and Lee Coldren, former State Department expert on South Asia, meet with Pakistani and Russian intelligence officers in a Berlin hotel. This is Ceylon, 16th of August 2002. This is the third of a series of back-channel conferences called Brainstorming on Afghanistan. Taliban representatives sat in on previous meetings but boycotted this one due to the worsening tensions. However, the Pakistani ISI relays information from the meeting to the Taliban. The Guardian, 22nd of, September 2001. At the meeting, Coldren passes on a message from Bush officials. He later says, I think there was some discussion of the fact that the United States was so disgusted with the Taliban that they might be considering some military action. And now this part is The Guardian, 26th of September 2001. Accounts vary, but former Pakistani Foreign Secretary Niaz Niak later says he is told by a senior American official at the meeting that the military action to overthrow the Taliban in Afghanistan is planned to take place before the snows started falling in Afghanistan by the middle of October at the latest. The goal is to kill or capture both bin Laden and Taliban leader Mullah Omar, topple the Taliban regime and install a transitional government of moderate Afghans in its place. Uzbekistan and Russia would also participate. Nayak also says it was doubtful that Washington would drop its plan even if bin Laden were to be surrendered immediately by the Taliban. The BBC, 18th of September 2001. One specific threat made at this meeting is that the Taliban can choose between carpet of bombs, an invasion, or carpets of gold. That's the pipeline. Brisadam and Dask, 2002, pages 43. Now contends that Tom Simons made the carpet statement. Simons claims it's possible that a mischievous American participant, after several drinks, may have thought it smart to evoke gold carpets and carpet bombs. Even Americans can't resist the temptation to be mischievous. Nyack and other American participants deny that the pipeline was an issue at the meeting. Let me give you this one. Let me see. Screw this one.
I've just managed to open it online.
Oh, excellent!
Just tell me the page. There we go.
Now I've got to scroll up again because when you let go of the click, it makes it disappear on you. Un momento, por favor. Oh, okay. So it starts. It's like 64, and it's August 2nd, 2001. U.S. official secretly meets Taliban ambassador in last attempt to secure pipeline deal.
Okay, that's definitely not it, because that means our page counts are out of sync.
Oh, they're out of sync. That's okay. So just go back. Go back a page.
So what was the last one you read? October 1998? No. December 5?
July 21st, 2001.
July 21st, 2001. July 21st. Here we go.
So August 2nd is where you're up to.
Yes. August 2nd, 2001. U.S. official secretly meets Taliban ambassador in last attempt to secure pipeline deal.
Hooray!
Christina Rocca, sources Sherman Custer, Reuters, Corbis, and Christina Rocca, Director of Asian Affairs, Christina Rocca, that is, Director of Asian Affairs at the State Department, secretly meets the Taliban ambassador in Islamabad, which is in Pakistan, apparently in a last-ditch attempt to secure a pipeline deal. Rocca was previously in charge of contacts with Islamic guerrilla groups at the CIA and oversaw the delivery of Stinger missiles to Afghan Mujahideen in the 1980s when they were our friends. That's from the Irish Times, November 19, 2001, as well as Prasad and Dasky, 2002, pages 45 onwards, as well as Salon on the 8th of Feb 2002. Around the same time, U.S. embassy officials in Islamabad hold secret talks with Taliban security chief Hamid Razoli. Washington Post, October 29, 2001.
August 2 to 3, 2001. Taliban officials predict US will invade Afghanistan by mid-October, possibly in response to major attack inside US. A senior official in the Taliban's defense ministry tells journalist Hamid Mir that the US will soon invade Afghanistan. Mir will later recall that he is told, we believe Americans are going to invade Afghanistan and they will do this before October 15th, 2001. And justification for this would be either one of the two options. Taliban got control of Afghanistan or a big major attack against Americans, either inside America or elsewhere in the world. Mir reports this information before 9/11. Presumably in the newspaper in Pakistan that he works for. Sources Bergen, 2006, pages 287. Interestingly, Afghan warlord Bilbuddin Hekmatyar made a similar prediction to Mir several months before. And it says, see April 2001. Also, several weeks earlier, US officials reportedly passed word to Taliban officials in the back channel meeting that the US may soon attack Afghanistan if the Taliban do not cooperate on building an oil and gas pipeline running through the country. According to one participant in the meeting, the US attack would take place by the middle of October at the latest. Wow. Mickey. Nope, he's muted. September 11, 2001, the 9/11 attack. 3,000 die in New York City and Washington, D.C. The 9/11 attack, 4 planes are hijacked, 2 crash into the World Trade Center, and 1 into the Pentagon, and 1 crashes into the Pennsylvania countryside. Nearly 3,000 people are killed.
And that's what happened, and that's history. That's what we remember. That's what we
what's
remember.
written into history, yes.
Now, so we've given you all the stuff that went on before. Now, what happened afterwards? Now, there's a few things. There's a timeline which we will take you through, if you like, on the day, minute by minute almost. But on October 5th, 2001, a study reveals significant oil and gas deposits in Afghanistan. Contrary to popular belief, Afghanistan has significant oil and gas deposits. So it's not just a conduit for the gas from Central Asia. Remember, it was about the pipeline, right? During the Soviets' decade-long occupation of Afghanistan, Moscow estimated Afghanistan's proven and probable natural gas reserves at around 5 trillion cubic feet, and production reached 275 million cubic feet per day in the mid-1970s. Non-stop war since then has prevented further exploitation. Asia Times, October 5th, 2001. A later article suggests that the country may also have as much copper as Chile, the world's largest producer, and significant deposits of coal, emeralds, tungsten, lead, zinc, uranium ore, and more. Estimates of Afghanistan's natural wealth may even be understated because surveys were conducted decades ago using less advanced methods and covering limited territory. Houston Chronicle, December 23, 2001.
October 9th, 2001. 4 days later, Afghan pipeline idea is revived. The US Ambassador Wendy Chamberlain meets with the Pakistani oil minister. She is briefed on the gas pipeline project from Turkmenistan across Afghanistan to Pakistan, which appears to be revived in a view of recent geopolitical developments. In other words, the 9/11 attacks. Frontier Post, 10th of October 2001.
December 2, 2001. Enron files for bankruptcy. Remember, that's all around the time Enron happened, guys.
That's right.
And yeah, I know. Enron files for Chapter 11 bankruptcy, the biggest bankruptcy in history up to that date. The source is BBC, October 1, 2002. Sorry, January 1. It's January 10, 2002. January 10, 2002. However, in 2002, Enron will reorganize as a pipeline company and will continue working on its controversial Double power plant. That's from the Houston Business Journal, March 15, 2002.
Well, revelations continue. December 8, 2002. US oil companies to invest $200 billion in Kazakhstan. Lucky the door opened there for some reason. During a visit to Kazakhstan in Central Asia, Secretary of State Powell states that US oil companies are likely to invest $200 billion in Kazakhstan alone in the next 5 to 10 years. New York Times, 15th of December 2001. Afghan Prime Minister Hamid Karzai and his transitional government assume power in Afghanistan. The press reported a few weeks before that Karzai had been a paid consultant for UNOCAL at one time. Karzai and UNOCAL both deny this, as well as the Deputy Foreign Minister for the Taliban, i.e. Mond Paris. This is 13th of December 2001, and CNN broke the story on the 22nd of December 2001.
January 1st, 2002. Ex-UNOCAL employee becomes U.S. Special Envoy to Afghanistan. Zalmay Khalilzad, already special assistant to the president and senior director for Gulf, Southwest Asia, and other regional issues, and a prominent neoconservative, is appointed by President Bush as a special envoy to Afghanistan. Source BBC, January 1, 2002. In his former role as UNICOL advisor, Khalilzad participated in negotiations with the Taliban to build a pipeline through Afghanistan. He also wrote op-eds in the Washington Post in 1997, supporting the Taliban regime, back when UNICOL was hoping to work with the Taliban, and that was broken in The Independent on January 10, 2002. He will be appointed U.S. ambassador in Afghanistan in 2003.
February 9, 2002, Pakistani and Afghan leaders revive Afghanistan pipeline idea. Pakistani President Musharraf and Afghan leader Hamid Karzai announced their agreement to cooperate in all spheres of activity, including the proposed Central Asian pipeline, which they call in the interest of both countries. And this was reported by both the Irish Times and the Gulf News. The Irish Times was the 9th of February 2002. The Gulf News was the 2nd of... Well, that can't be right. No, I reckon they're the same date. One's US and one isn't.
Yeah. Brings us to February 14, Valentine's Day 2002. U.S. military bases line Afghan pipeline route. What a shock. What a shock. The Israeli newspaper Maariv notes, if one looks at the map of the big American bases created in the Afghan war, one is struck by the fact that they are completely identical to the route of the projected oil pipeline to the Indian Ocean. Maariv also states Osama bin Laden did not comprehend that his actions serve American interests. If I were a believer in conspiracy theory, I would think that bin Laden is an American agent. Not being one, I can only wonder at the coincidence. Chicago Tribune, March 18, 2002.
May 30th, 2002, Afghan, Turkmen, and Pakistani leaders signed pipeline deal. Didn't take long. Leaders signed the pipeline agreement, source Associated Press. Afghan's interim leader, Hamid Karzai, Turkmenistan's President Niyazov, and Pakistani President Musharraf meet in Islamabad and sign a memorandum of understanding on the Trans-Afghanistan gas pipeline project. And there's a whole bunch of references here. Dawn Karchai, Alexander and gas connections. Afghan leader Hamid Karzai, who formerly worked for UNOCAL, calls UNOCAL the lead company in building the pipeline. What a shock again, Mickey.
Yeah.
Now, BBC reported that the 13th of May 2002. The Los Angeles Times comments, to some here, it looked like the fix was in for UNOCAL when President Bush named a former UNOCAL consultant, Khalilzad, and as his special envoy to Afghanistan late last year. Los Angeles Times, 30th of May 2002. UNOCAL, I keep pronouncing it wrong, claims that it has no interest in Afghanistan pipeline after 9/11. However, Afghan officials say that UNOCAL will be the lead company in funding the pipeline. The Afghan Deputy Minister of Mines comments on UNOCAL's claim of disinterest, quoting, "Business has its secrets and mysteries. Maybe they don't want it to be disclosed in the media." The Toronto Star, 2nd of March 2003.
July 16, 2002. Blair claims attack on Afghanistan only possible after 9/11. British Prime Minister Tony Blair states, and I'm quoting here, and you all remember Tony Blair, I'm sure. Quote, "We knew about Al-Qaeda for a long time. They were committing terrorist acts, they were planning, They were organizing. Everybody knew. We all knew that Afghanistan was a failed state living on drugs and terror. We did not act. To be truthful about it, there was no way we could have got the public consent to have suddenly launched a campaign on Afghanistan, but for what happened on September 11. London Times, July 17, 2002. In a book released 1 month later, Clinton's former National Security Advisor Sandy Berger will similarly state, and I'm quoting, "You show me one reporter, one commentator, one member of Congress who thought we should invade Afghanistan before September 11, and I'll buy you dinner in the best restaurant in New York City." Millerstone and Mitchell, 2002, pages 219 and following. So what we saw, this particular item on the timeline is pertinent because we see here the action plan unfolding. They're correct. Blair and Sandy Berger and anyone that would have said something similar, they were all correct. There was no way anybody would have agreed to invade Afghanistan. Now, bearing in mind here for a second, please, the FBI never charged Osama bin Laden for the 9/11 attacks. Never. He was never sought for that on the FBI website. The evidence just wasn't there. Number one. Number two, there weren't any Afghans on the plane.
True.
Osama bin Laden himself is not an Afghan. And as we learned now, he spent most of his time in Pakistan, not in Afghanistan, all along. They were, in fact, I think except for one, they were all Saudis on the alleged plane.
Yes.
Now, no one is talking about invading Saudi Arabia, are they? No, they're talking about Afghanistan because the argument was that Al-Qaeda, but not the Taliban, not the Mujahideen, but Al-Qaeda was planning its attacks from Afghanistan, and it was a failed state. Now, what we neglect to mention here is that they decided we don't want to build the pipeline. And secondly, they destroyed the poppy crop that year. They burned it all down. No more heroin for the West.
Yeah.
So those are all facts which you can independently verify if you like. So I just want to make that point about those statements.
So don't dare apologize. Goodness. All right. So November 1st, 2002, Caspian oil potential was wildly overestimated. Steve Mann, director of the State Department's Caspian Basin Energy Policy Office, points out that the Caspian Sea nations contain 50 billion barrels of proven oil reserves. Associated Press, November 2002. Caspian oil represents 4% of the world's reserves. It will never dominate the world markets, but it will have an important role to play, says Mann. He concludes that the Caspian Sea energy will not be a second Persian Gulf. Once again, same date from Associated Press. In late 1995, the American Petroleum Institute asserted that the states bordering the Caspian Sea contain 659 billion barrels of oil.
And then there were 659 barrels
and then
of oil.
There were none.
There were 658 billion barrels of oil. Well, yeah, I know, right? And then there were none. Oh.
Yeah.
So that's a bit of a miscalculation, isn't it? Oh,
hideously incorrect.
Hideously. December 27th, 2002. Afghanistan, Pakistan, and Turkmenistan agree on building pipeline. Afghanistan, Pakistan, and Turkmenistan reached an agreement in principle to build the Trans-Afghanistan pipeline, a $3.2 billion project that has been delayed for many years. Skeptics say the project would require an indefinite foreign military presence in Afghanistan. BBC, May 30th, 2002, Associated Press, December 26, 2002, and the BBC, December 27th, 2002. As of mid-2004, construction has yet to begin. We did have troops in there for 20 years. Didn't we?
Yes.
We did.
Your point being?
No point. No. Just making conversation.
Yeah,
Just making conversations. I love the media.
Yeah, nothing to see here. January 18th, 2005. Plans for a trans-Afghanistan pipeline continue. The US ambassador to Turkmenistan states that US companies might join a long-delayed trans-Afghan natural gas pipeline project. The Turkmenistan government says a feasibility study for the $3.5 billion pipeline is to complete and construction will begin in 2006. The project's main sponsor is the Asian Development Bank. The pipeline is to run from Turkmenistan through Herat and Kandahar in Afghanistan, through the Pakistani cities of Quetta and Multan, and on to India, says the Associated Press, 18th of January 2005. However, in August 2005, it will be reported that security concerns are still causing delays in approval of the project. A NATO representative will say, people here are able to see what the Iraqi insurgency can do despite the presence of 150,000 foreign troops. Why not do the same in Afghanistan? Sydney Morning Herald, 25th of August 2005.
May 28th, 2006. Baku-Tbilisi-Ceyhan oil pipeline opens. The first oil pumped from Baku by the Caspian Sea in Azerbaijan arrives in Ceyhan on Turkey's Mediterranean coast and is loaded onto a ship. The 1,770-kilometer pipeline, which passes through the Georgian capital of Tbilisi, bypasses Russia and Iran for geopolitical reasons. The main shareholder is British Petroleum, and other significant shareholders include the State Oil Company of Azerbaijan, SOCAR, State Oil of Norway, and the US company Unocal. What?
Yay.
No, we're not building a pipeline. Silence you. Which has an 8.9% interest and became interested in the project no later than 1998. Unocal begins losing interest in the pipeline across Afghanistan around the same time, which is 1998. Substantial amounts to finance the 3 to 4 billion Baku-Tbilisi-Ceyhan BTC pipeline were arranged by the World Bank's International Finance Corporation and the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development. The consortium members put up the remaining 30%. This is from the US Congress on the 12th of February 1998, as well as Alexander's Gas and Oil Connections, July 12, 2002, The Guardian, December 1, 2003, The Guardian again, May 26, 2005, Eurasia Daily Monitor, 31st of May 2005, Turkish Weekly, 29th of May 2006. Journalist Pepe Escobar comments, I'm quoting, in terms of no-holds-barred power politics and oil geopolitics, BTC, that's the pipeline, is the real deal, a key component in the US's overall strategy of wresting the Caucasus and Central Asia away from Russia and bypassing Iranian oil and gas, or gas routes, rather. BTC makes little sense in economic terms. Oil experts know that the most cost-effective routes from the Caspian would be south, through Iran, or north, through Russia. But BTC is a design masterpiece of power politics from the point of view of Washington and its corporate allies. US Vice President Dick Cheney, already in his previous incarnation as Halliburton chief, has always been a huge cheerleader for the strategically significant BTC. End quote. Escobar also mentions that the amount of Caspian oil was overestimated, as we said earlier. The Caspian, I'm quoting, may hold only 32 billion barrels of oil. Wasn't it just 60 just a moment ago? Not much more than the reserves of Qatar, a small Gulf producer. Asia Times, May 26, 2005. However, the Caspian area is still believed to hold considerable amounts of natural gas. The construction of this pipeline does not hold plans for the construction of a natural gas pipeline from Turkmenistan across Afghanistan to the Indian Ocean, January 18, 2005 is a reference here.
Wow, you got all the way through to there. Wow, goodness. Now this one's huge, so I think when we
So it is.
yeah, I think you can take from at the end of like the first paragraph. I mean, it's until the next date, main date.
You go.
All right. So August 8th, 2009, Sybil Edmonds testifies under oath. FBI whistleblower Sybil Edmonds testifies under oath in a deposition for the Schmidt versus Kikorian case. David Kikorian, probably Kikorian, a 2010 Democratic candidate for the US Representative of Ohio, had been sued by Gene Schmidt. This is R-OH.
Republican.
What does that mean?
Republican Ohio.
Right.
Republican.
Oh, I see. That's so. The other one was A something anyway. In response to his claim that she had accepted blood money from the Turkish lobby in exchange for opposing an American genocide resolution. Armenian, that's better. As part of his defense against Schmidt's charge that he had libeled her, Kikorian subpoenaed Edmonds' testimony, as she had previously spoken and written about the corruption of members of Congress by the Turkish lobby. In two unrelated lawsuits prior to this one, Edmonds had been blocked from testifying by former Attorney General John Ashcroft under the State Secrets Act in Schmidt versus Kikorian. However, the Department of Justice under Attorney General Eric Holder does not re-invoke the claim of state secrets or otherwise move to block the testimony and does not dispatch legal counsel to raise objections during the deposition. At the deposition, Kikorian is represented by Dan Marino of Mark Garagos law firm. Schmidt is represented by Bruce Feen, and Edmonds has retained Stephen M. Cohn of the National Whistleblower Center. Cohn says he has asked Sybil Edmonds to limit her responses only to the information that she believes to be publicly available or she has learned from sources outside of her employment. Marino begins examination of Edmonds by asking basic questions about her background and work with the FBI, then works through a lengthy series of questions based on public statements Edmonds had made regarding events she witnessed. Much of this information has previously been reported, but for the first time, Edmonds is swearing to it under oath. That's Edmonds, 8th of August 2009. The following subjects were covered in Attorney Dan Marino's initial examination of Sybil Edmonds. Edmonds' experience with her FBI co-worker, Malik Can Dickerson, and her husband, Major Douglas Dickerson. Edmonds and her husband, Matthew Edmonds, had previously said former FBI colleague Malik Can Dickerson and her husband, Major Douglas Dickerson, attempted to bribe her to pass on sensitive information, and she confirms this. Edmonds had also previously reported to Congress and the Justice Department Inspector General that Malik Can Dickerson was spying for subjects of the FBI's investigations. See late October 2001. And she confirms this as well. Edmonds, 8th of August 2009, pages 22, 34, and 38. Mekki.
Turkish entities targeted by FBI investigations of influence and espionage. When asked if the American-Turkish Council was a target of FBI investigations, Edmonds confirms it. But when asked to identify others, she declines to specifically name any. When asked about the Turkish lobby, Edmonds says there is an overt and a covert lobby. The covert lobby involves trying to obtain very sensitive, classified, highly classified US intelligence information, weapons technology information, classified congressional records, recruiting key U.S. individuals with access to highly sensitive information, blackmailing, and bribery. It's a whole bunch of stuff there, I guess. She testifies the Turkish government is indirectly involved and has its concerns, and that its concerns include access to U.S. aid and weapons, as well as preventing Congress from passing a resolution acknowledging the Turkish genocide of the Armenians. Again, Edmonds, August 8, 2009, pages 26 to 41.
Edmonds' State Secrets Privilege Gallery. Marino asked the meaning of the State Secrets Privilege Gallery at her website, justicitizen.com. The gallery is a collection of photos without names. Edmonds explains its features. It features the subjects of FBI investigations Edmonds was part of during her time as an FBI translator, whose names and criminal activities were being protected by claims of state secrets and the gag orders she had been placed under. That is so inappropriate to have those public. The 21 photos, including 3 placeholders with question marks, feature current and former State and Defense Department officials, current and former members of Congress and lobbyists and members of think tanks. Marino then names 9 of the people listed in the gallery, and she asked why they're listed. As it had been reported by others that Mark Grossman and the person involved, Edmonds discusses in some detail her knowledge of this involvement with a criminal network stealing and selling US nuclear secrets, as well as his disclosure to a Turkish agent that Brewster Jennings was a CIA front company, that Brewster Jennings was a CIA front company investigating nuclear trafficking. Edmonds discusses the others in more general terms. Dennis Hastert, R-IL, that'd be Republican Illinois, I presume. Dan Burton, Stephen Solars, Bob Livingston, and Tom Lantos are all variously accused of accepting bribes in exchange for serving the interest of foreign governments, as well as involvement in blackmail and money laundering. Lantos is also accused of disclosing highest level protected US intelligence and weapons technology, including both to Israel and to Turkey. Edmonds indicates the question mark in the congressional group is a bisexual woman and a current member of Congress. Turkish agents wanted her to expose an Armenian genocide resolution, and because her husband was an influential businessman, Edmonds did not include her photo in the gallery, and declines to name her in the deposition, as she is unaware if the Congresswoman had actually been blackmailed or done anything illegal. However, in an interview published in November 2008, American Conservative, Edmonds names her as Jan Schakowsky. Wow. There's 2 minutes left, Mackie.
I think I can read this one. Indirect knowledge of illicit Israeli influence on Congress. Important. Asked if she's aware of the Israeli government or Israeli organizations influencing members of Congress, Edmonds responds, quote, indirectly, based on how they work, some of the largest Israeli lobby groups with the entities such as the ATC and also the Turkish diplomatic community, and how they actually trained and make it possible for the Turkish lobby and these entities to do it. They had training period in 96 and 98 from individuals that were sent to them from both AIPAC and JINSA, both the lobbying but also on the covering up the money track. So that's a yes.
Yeah. So this is all quite revealing to,
I reckon.
Yeah. Like, we covered off only some of these names in prior conversations and think tanks. And then this, I think this, it joins, like, let's say it joins it all together. But But does it?
Well, to some extent, right? I mean, there's a lot more than what we've shared with you. In fact, there's a bit more text here, which we won't have time to, which is not really critical to the understanding of what happened that day. However, what is critical is the fact that many people benefited from what happened on that day. And as you can see, things were set in motion years, if not decades, before we I guess suffered the attack of September 11th. That was just the attack was just a catalyst, an enabler, right? It served a purpose. Now, many people benefited in many different ways. And this is really one of the key signatures of these events. The more people benefit, the more likely it is not a coincidence. And that's the music, Dave.
Yeah, I know, right? All right, so this has been David Mackey's Shiny Side Out, episode 559. We'll catch you next week for 560. Also, Tuesday morning and Thursday morning drive time in the US for Plato's Cave. In the meantime, love his show. Jer Bear's coming up next with After Hours. Take care, everyone.